California's best redevelopment markets. Deep dive analysis.
Revitalizing neighborhoods through infill development and refurbishment is a key opportunity across California's diverse regions. Below is a city-by-city analysis of 7 standout markets for value-add real estate development: Fresno, South Lake Tahoe, Victorville, Inglewood, Salinas, Oakland, and Redding. Each profile includes a redevelopment thesis, data-backed evidence of opportunity, local policy context, redevelopment strategies, and ideological perspectives: market-oriented, equity-focused, environmental, and growth-oriented. Key risks and counterarguments are highlighted for a balanced view.
Fresno, Central Valley. Redevelopment thesis. Fresno is emerging as California's flagship inland market for scalable revitalization. As the Central Valley's largest city and economic hub, Fresno offers lower real estate costs than coastal metros, a large stock of older housing, and strong growth in logistics, healthcare, and clean energy jobs, making it ideal for workforce housing, rehabs, and downtown infill. The city's pro-development stance, exemplified by regaining a state pro-housing designation in 2026, signals supportive policy and funding access for redevelopment. In short, Fresno combines affordability, economic drivers, and political will to support neighborhood revitalization. Evidence of opportunity. Affordability and scale. Fresno's median home values, $390,420K in 2026, remain far below California's coastal markets, enabling investors to acquire multiple properties or larger sites for the cost of a single coastal asset. This lower barrier to entry supports large-scale scattered site rehab strategies. Housing and infill momentum. After a temporary setback in 2025, Fresno regained California's pro-housing designation by implementing fast-track policies, e.g. converting excess office land to apartments by right. This status makes Fresno more competitive for state housing grants, which the city has leveraged, e.g. a $43.7 million infill infrastructure grant in 2023 to upgrade downtown utilities and support 862 new housing units. Major downtown projects are underway, including reuse of historic buildings, former CVS, Gottschalk's, Helm, and J.C. Penney building, for housing. With streamlined SECA for dense downtown projects, no additional review needed for up to 15 stories, and 100-day entitlements in designated zones, Fresno offers a uniquely fast approval environment. Economic resilience. Fresno's economy is anchored by agriculture, ag-tech, logistics, healthcare, and education, fueling housing demand. The city recorded 5% unemployment in early 2026, near a decades-long low. Population growth, 1% in 2025, and in-migration from pricier regions add to demand for moderate-cost housing, particularly single-family rentals and small multifamily. Policy and planning context. Fresno's government actively incentivizes redevelopment and urban infill. The city's general plan prioritizes both downtown revitalization and new growth areas, e.g. a planned 9,000-acre southeast development area for expansion. Fresno's renewed pro-housing designation, 2026, reflects adopted policies like by-right office-to-housing conversion, fee waivers for infill, and streamlined approvals. The city has also secured over $250 million in state funds for downtown infrastructure, parking, sewers, transit hub, directly addressing barriers to infill projects. Fresno currently has dozens of infill and brownfield projects under review per the city's planning site. No citywide rent control exists. State rent cap, Law AB 1482 applies, which some see as making Fresno attractive for investment, though also raising concerns about tenant stability. Redevelopment strategies. Key redevelopment plays in Fresno include inner-city housing rehabs, acquire and gut rehabilitate older single-family homes and small apartment buildings in central Fresno, especially around downtown and established neighborhoods, e.g. Tower District. Upgrades focus on code compliance, energy efficiency, and adding curb appeal to reposition properties as quality workforce rentals. Accessory dwelling units. ADUs Fresno permits and encourages ADUs on single-family lots, allowing added density and rental income without major new land costs. This is especially effective in areas with larger lots or alley access. Adaptive reuse of commercial space. Fresno's older strip malls and underutilized commercial corridors can be reimagined as mixed-use hubs. City policies now allow office/retail space conversions to housing by right, with streamlined public process to incentivize creative reuse. Downtown mixed-use development. In the core, combine historic preservation with new construction. Projects like The Penny, redeveloping a vacant 1920s J.C. Penney department store into 160 apartments and ground-floor retail, are benefiting from city and state support via grants and tax credits. Ideological perspectives and debates. Market-oriented perspective. Investors and pro-growth advocates see Fresno as a model of market-driven revitalization. Lower regulatory hurdles and land costs allow private capital to flow, improving housing stock and infrastructure without excessive public spending. They argue that job creation and homeownership opportunities will arise naturally from development, benefiting working families and expanding the tax base. Criticisms. Housing justice groups counter that purely market-led development may neglect affordability for the lowest-income residents, urging safeguards to ensure upgraded homes remain accessible and long-time residents are not displaced. Equity-oriented perspective. Affordable housing and community advocates emphasize redevelopment as a chance to address blight and overcrowding in low-income neighborhoods, improve substandard housing conditions, and add new affordable units via inclusionary housing or public-private partnerships. They applaud Fresno's affordable projects, e.g. senior housing near the new Community Senior Center, and say these efforts improve health and equity. Criticisms. Equity advocates remain wary that revitalization focused on market-rate housing could drive gentrification. They call for more tenant protections, local hiring, and community land trusts to ensure economic benefits stay with residents, and to prevent displacement of Black and Latino communities in South and West Fresno. Environmentalist perspective. Smart growth and environmental groups highlight Fresno's potential to absorb growth through infill rather than sprawl, protecting surrounding farmland. Redeveloping central Fresno reduces commute distances and curbs suburban encroachment onto agricultural land. They support Fresno's moves on infill incentive zones and brownfield cleanup. Criticisms. Environmentalists caution against large greenfield expansions, like the SE development area expansion, that could induce sprawl and strain water resources. They urge Fresno to prioritize infill and transit-oriented development over peripheral growth to reduce traffic and emissions. Industrialization/growth perspective. Business and industry proponents view Fresno as a prime logistics and industrial expansion node, situated on major highways and rail, which justifies infrastructure-heavy growth. They support new industrial parks and releasing more land for development to attract large employers, contending this will grow the regional economy. Criticisms. Opponents argue that focusing on outward expansion diverts resources from inner-city revitalization, as seen in local debates where some feared a new industrial zone would take away from commitments in the inner city and West Fresno. Balancing expansion with infill is a persistent tension. Key risks and challenges. Fresno's redevelopment push faces economic and social risks. The local economy is diversified but still partially tied to agriculture and distribution, making it vulnerable to climate impacts, droughts, automation in farming, and business cycles. Market volatility could affect ROI on large projects. Displacement concerns persist, as Fresno's home prices and rents rise, up slightly in 2026. Lower-income residents may struggle without robust, affordable housing. The city's challenge is to continue leveraging pro-housing policies and grants to channel private investment into inclusive growth. South Lake Tahoe, Sierra Nevadas. Redevelopment thesis. South Lake Tahoe is a high-value but supply-constrained market where strategic redevelopment can solve chronic housing shortages for local workers. As a resort town with limited buildable land and strict environmental rules, Tahoe's best opportunities lie in refurbishing rundown cabins, older motels, and small multi-unit properties to serve year-round residents and seasonal employees. Key advantages include year-round tourism demand, a finite housing supply, which supports values, and new policy incentives for workforce housing by regional authorities. The redevelopment thesis is to repurpose aging structures in town centers, upgrading them sustainably, to provide much-needed affordable and moderate-income housing while maintaining Tahoe's environmental integrity. Evidence of opportunity. Tourism and rent potential. Lake Tahoe's recreation economy guarantees strong demand for lodging and rentals. Short-term vacation rentals and second home owners have pushed costs high, but also indicate potential revenue for renovated properties, e.g., upscale cabins. However, a severe workforce housing shortage has local businesses struggling to retain employees who can't find housing. Vacancy rates for long-term rentals are essentially near zero in ski season, and seasonal workers often commute from far outside the basin. Supply constraints. Environmental quotas and geography limit new construction. The Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, TRPA, enforces caps on development rights and coverage to protect lake clarity. This means existing developed parcels, old motels, large lots with cabins, etc., are prime targets for intensification. Land is scarce and pricey, with per square foot values among the highest in the Sierras, sales often $500, $700 square foot. For small homes, redevelopment, rather than new sprawl, is the main path to add housing. Policy incentives. TRPA approved a package of affordable/workforce housing incentives in late 2023 to reduce costs for local housing projects. These targeted changes to Tahoe's zoning include up to 9 feet of extra building height, reduced parking requirements if transit is provided, more flexible coverage allowances, and density bonuses for deed-restricted workforce units near transit and town centers. Small multifamily and ADU projects in residential zones also get scaled incentives. Meanwhile, the city of South Lake Tahoe offers free development rights and land coverage for ADUs and multifamily projects that serve moderate-income families and even waives sewer hookup fees for projects with at least 50% affordable units. 1. These policies significantly lower redevelopment costs for targeted housing types. Case studies. Several motel-to-housing conversions have demonstrated viability thanks to state homekey grants and local support. For example, Tahoe Coalition for the Homeless repurposed old motels into navigation centers and micro-apartments with $9.6 million in state funding in 2020. Additionally, the Tahoe Basin Bonus Unit Program offers bonus residential units for projects that relocate development from sensitive areas, encouraging builders to intensify already built sites. 1. Policy and regulatory context. Redevelopment in Tahoe must navigate a multi-jurisdictional framework. TRPA's regional plan tightly controls new development but supports infill, e.g., TRPA now grants free ADU development rights if within half a mile of transit and multifamily zones. 1. The city of South Lake Tahoe complements this with local incentives, as detailed above, and has updated its housing element to promote workforce housing and transitional housing. Environmental regulations are strict. Projects must mitigate runoff, limit land coverage, and often require TRPA review. Large projects can be complex, but small-scale projects, under 4 units or on disturbed land, often qualify for expedited review or even categorical exemptions. Short-term rental (STR) restrictions exist in the city, caps and banned in many neighborhoods, shifting focus toward longer-term housing solutions. Redevelopment strategies. Cabin and duplex rehabs. Acquire aging cabins, chalets, and small duplexes in older neighborhoods, many built 1960s, 80s. Implement high-quality renovations, e.g. insulation, modern heating, fire-safe materials, and reposition for long-term rentals or seasonal workforce housing. These properties often have classic Tahoe character but need substantial upgrades. Energy efficiency and aesthetic improvements also resonate with Tahoe's eco-conscious community. Motel-to-housing conversions. Convert obsolete motels, 1950s/60s era tourist lodges, into permanent micro-apartments or dorm-style housing. TRPA and California's Project Homekey align on funding these conversions for homeless and low-income housing. For instance, under Project Homekey, local entities have converted motels in South Lake into supportive housing for homeless residents, illustrating the model's viability. Mixed-use infill in town centers. Focus on South Lake Tahoe's State Line/Heavenly Village area And why area? Tahoe Valley. Zones where TRPA encourages town center development. Replace underused retail or empty lots with buildings combining ground-floor neighborhood services, e.g. cafes, gear shops, and upper-floor apartments deed-restricted for local workers. TRPA's 2023 incentives specifically make town center multifamily projects easier by allowing more height and density. Green retrofits emphasize green rehabs. Tahoe's buyers and officials value sustainability, solar panels, battery backups for wildfire power outages, stormwater BMPs, and wildfire resilience, defensible space. Projects that integrate these features can garner community support and reduce long-term operating costs. Ideological perspectives and debates. Market-oriented perspective. Property rights advocates and local businesses argue that freeing up housing supply, including vacation rentals, and leveraging private investment is key to Tahoe's housing solution. They support maximizing flexibility for owners, e.g. fewer limits on short-term rentals in certain zones, and emphasize that redevelopment will create jobs in construction and tourism. They see motel conversions by private developers as a win-win, providing housing while profiting without needing heavy public subsidies. Criticisms. Equity and environmental voices push back, noting that an unfettered STR market led to the current crisis by taking housing stock out of long-term use. They advocate guardrails to ensure redevelopment serves local needs, e.g. requiring deed restrictions on any density bonuses so new units house locals, not become tourist rentals. Equity-oriented perspective. Workforce and housing advocates stress that redevelopment must prioritize locals and vulnerable residents. They champion projects like motel conversions for homeless housing or deed-restricted workforce apartments supported by nonprofits. They often support STR regulations to reduce outside speculator pressure on the market. Criticisms. Opponents fear these measures can dampen investment. For instance, limiting vacation rentals may reduce property values and tax revenue that fund city services. Equity advocates respond that a stable workforce housing stock ultimately sustains the tourism economy by keeping employees local. Environmentalist perspective. Conservation groups and many locals are highly influential in Tahoe. They insist that redevelopment adhere to strict environmental standards, controlling runoff to protect lake clarity, minimizing forest removal, and avoiding increased car traffic. They support focusing development in already disturbed areas, like existing urban lots, rather than green sites, aligning with TRPA's approach. Criticisms. Developers sometimes complain these requirements and TRPA processes add cost and delay. Environmentalists counter that Tahoe's ecology is its lifeblood. Long-term success of any project depends on preserving the lake and forests, so sustainable practices are non-negotiable. Industrialization/growth perspective. Regional growth advocates highlight South Lake Tahoe's economic reliance on tourism and gaming. They support increasing capacity for visitors through redevelopment, e.g. larger hotels, more vacation condos, to boost tax revenue and business growth. Some back vertical growth in central areas for more lodging and entertainment options. Criticisms. Residents often resist Vegas-ifying Tahoe. Large new developments face opposition for potentially undermining Tahoe's small-town character and causing congestion. The consensus is that growth must be carefully balanced with quality of life. Key risks and challenges. Redevelopment in Tahoe faces unique constraints. Regulatory complexity. City plus TRPA plus state plus sometimes two states can require patience and expertise. Project costs are high due to remote location and environmental mandates. Climate and disaster risk, wildfire, heavy snow, drought, must be considered in design and insurance costs. Community pushback is real. Locals have defeated projects seen as overly large or tourist-focused. However, strong partnerships and incentive programs, TRPA, city, state grants, are available for well-aligned projects, mitigating some financial risk. The bottom line, Tahoe offers big redevelopment upside if one can navigate the environmental and political landscape. Victorville, Eastern Deserts, High Desert. Redevelopment thesis. Victorville, in the Mojave High Desert, is a relief valve housing market for Southern California. It features far lower home prices than coastal cities and abundant land, making it attractive for entry-level development and value-add rehabs. Historically a boom-bust exurb, Victorville is stabilizing as inland migration increases. People priced out of LA and Orange County are moving up the I-15 corridor. The redevelopment focus in Victorville is twofold: revitalizing aging tract homes and commercial strips within the city, while also guiding new subdivisions and ADUs to meet demand. The city's stance is generally pro-growth, aiming to absorb regional housing needs while boosting local economy. Evidence of opportunity. Affordability magnet. At a median sale price $430,000 in 2026, Victorville ranks among California's most affordable mid-sized cities, roughly half the state median. This draws first-time buyers and investors seeking strong rental yields. For context, a $430,000 home in Victorville might rent for $2,200 plus, a better price-to-rent ratio than coastal markets. Housing expansion plans. The city's 2021 to 2029 housing element identified capacity for over 8,000 new housing units to meet regional needs. Evidence of follow-through. In 2025, the Planning Commission approved 2 large subdivisions totaling 562 single-family homes on 150 acres. These projects, requiring environmental mitigations, e.g. for the protected western Joshua Tree, show local authorities actively expanding supply. Victorville was even named California's most affordable city for homebuyers by some reports, encouraging more development. Logistics and job growth. Victorville benefits from the Inland Empire's booming logistics sector. It sits on I-15, a major trade route between Southern California and Las Vegas, and near the Southern California Logistics Airport. New warehouses and distribution centers have brought blue-collar jobs, fueling demand for workforce housing. For example, a 1 million-square-foot Amazon fulfillment center opened in nearby Apple Valley, signaling ongoing growth in the high desert. Rental market and ADUs. The rental occupancy is high given limited multi-family stock. Single-family homes serve as rentals for many moderate-income families. California law easing ADU permits has strong impact here since many Victorville lots are spacious. Adding granny flats can modestly densify neighborhoods and provide rental income to homeowner investors. The city has streamlined its ADU permitting to align with state law. Policy and regulatory context. Victorville's government promotes development as a key to affordability and economic growth. The city generally has fewer land use constraints than coastal areas. Large swaths of vacant land are pre-zoned for residential and commercial uses. SECA compliance still applies, e.g. requiring mitigation for desert species as seen in the 2025 subdivisions. But land availability means developers can often choose less sensitive sites. Victorville does not have rent control aside from the statewide cap, reflecting a stance that expanding supply is a better solution. The city's planning department actively updates zoning and objective design standards to welcome new projects, e.g. updating its general plan and specific plans to accommodate growth. Redevelopment strategies. Tract home rehabs. Many 1980s, 2000s subdivisions in Victorville have aging homes, cosmetic wear, original roofs/HVAC, often from foreclosure waves in 2008 to 2012. Acquiring these distressed properties and doing moderate rehabs, kitchen/bath remodels, new roofs, energy-efficient upgrades, can raise values and provide attractive, move-in-ready homes for first-time buyers or renters. With FHA buyers active in the area, updated homes sell quickly. ADU additions. On larger lots, construct ADUs or garage conversions. This both increases property yield and addresses rental demand. The city's relatively low fees and streamlined process make ADUs feasible. Proximity to schools or transit can further boost rental desirability. Commercial strip repositioning. Reuse tired strip malls or big box sites along major arterials, e.g. Bear Valley Road, Palmdale Road. These sites can be partially redeveloped into mixed-use, town center-style projects with new apartments or townhomes alongside smaller-scale retail. For example, a vacant big box, former Costco, on Dana Drive is being turned into a multi-tenant shopping center and restaurant hub, a model that could be adapted to include residential units. Infill on vacant lots. Within established neighborhoods, develop the numerous vacant parcels scattered through the city. Smaller local builders have succeeded by constructing duplexes and triplexes on empty lots in older parts of town, adding supply without large-scale development battles. Ideological perspectives and debates. Market-oriented perspective. Pro-growth and business groups see Victorville as an example of supply-side solutions to California's housing crunch. They argue that minimal constraints and abundant land allow market forces to add housing quickly, which will keep prices in check. Private capital is encouraged by low regulatory barriers, turning unused desert and underutilized property into homes with minimal government intervention. Criticisms. Environmental and community advocates caution that unbridled growth can lead to sprawl, traffic, and infrastructure strain. They note that affordability by distance might burden low-income residents with long commutes and push for more planning around transit and services. Equity-oriented perspective. Housing advocates emphasize that Victorville's growth should include community benefits and services. They point out that many new residents are lower-income families leaving expensive areas. Thus, Victorville must invest in schools, transit, and social infrastructure alongside homes. They favor mixed-income developments and ensuring logistics companies provide fair wages. Criticisms. Pro-growth voices respond that too many mandates could discourage development. They believe the best way to help low-income people is to increase overall housing supply and create construction and logistics jobs. Achieving a balance between attracting investment and imposing standards is an ongoing debate. Environmentalist perspective. Environmental and smart growth advocates keep an eye on how high desert development affects natural resources. They worry about urban sprawl encroaching on desert ecosystems, especially habitat of threatened species like the Joshua tree, which already triggered mitigation measures in a recent project. They also highlight water supply concerns. The Mojave Aquifer is limited, and more development means more water demand. Green building, solar panels, water-efficient landscaping is encouraged to address these issues. Criticisms. Some local leaders argue these environmental concerns can be managed through mitigation and that halting growth is not an option given the housing crisis. They assert that the desert has space for responsible expansion and that infill alone can't absorb SoCal's growth. Industrialization/growth perspective. Local economic development proponents champion the logistics and manufacturing potential of Victorville. They support converting raw land into industrial parks, arguing it brings jobs and expands the tax base. The Southern California Logistics Airport, a former Air Force base, is a prime example of this vision, a large-scale repurposing into a cargo and manufacturing hub that has attracted major employers. Criticisms. Residents often raise infrastructure lag. Roads, utilities, and public safety need to catch up with growth. Some fear Victorville could become a warehouse town without sufficient quality of life investments. Planning for complete communities, with more than just warehousing and housing, is a focal point of local policy discussion. Key risks and challenges. While Victorville offers high cash flow potential, it is also more volatile than stabilized markets. It was ground zero for foreclosures in the last housing crash, with home values swinging dramatically, a risk if interest rates or the economy shift sharply. Long-distance commuting for residents, 70-plus miles to LA, is a concern, especially if gas prices rise. The city will need to attract more local employers to sustain its growth. Infrastructure funding is another challenge. Rapid expansion can strain roads, water systems, and social services. However, state housing mandates and funding via RHNA allocations provide impetus and resources to address these needs. Overall, Victorville's low-cost and proactive planning position it as a major outlet for SoCal's redevelopment demand, but careful growth management is required to ensure it remains livable and sustainable. Inglewood, Los Angeles/SoCal. Redevelopment thesis. Inglewood exemplifies urban transformation in Los Angeles County. Once underinvested, this inner-ring city is now a dynamic redevelopment hotspot thanks to multi-billion-dollar investments, NFL SoFi Stadium, NBA Intuit Dome, transit expansions that are raising the area's profile. Inglewood's redevelopment thesis centers on transit-oriented and community-minded revitalization, upgrading aging housing and commercial corridors near new stadiums and rail lines, while balancing growth with affordability and anti-displacement efforts. With surging investor interest, Inglewood has both great upside, rising property values, and serious challenges, gentrification pressures. The key is to channel private capital into projects that enhance the city and include long-time residents in the benefits. Evidence of opportunity. Major anchor projects. In the past few years, Inglewood landed two enormous sports/entertainment complexes. SoFi Stadium, opened 2020, home to NFL's Rams/Chargers, and Intuit Dome, NBA Clippers Arena, opening 2024. These have spurred a wave of nearby development. For example, in January 2026, the city approved a 13-story mixed-use tower at 4200 West Century Boulevard to replace an old 135-room motel. This project, by Crescent Hotel Group, will include 293 hotel rooms, 11 condos, and event space to serve stadium visitors. It required a general plan amendment from industrial to mixed use, which the City Council supported after hearing broad support from unions and business groups emphasizing job creation and investment. This is one of several new hotels. Others include a 300-room Cali Hotel and a 150-room Marriott Fairfield in nearby, transforming the Century Boulevard corridor. Transit connectivity. Inglewood is benefiting from LA's transit expansion. The Metro K Line light rail, opened 2022, runs through Inglewood with multiple stations. A people mover is planned to connect the K Line directly to SoFi Stadium by 2027. This is driving transit-oriented development. TODEG, developers are buying 1940s, 60s apartment buildings near rail stations to renovate or replace them with higher-density housing. The city's planning update, Next Level Inglewood, envisions dense mixed-use nodes at station areas. Rising rents and incomes. Inglewood's median rents and home prices have climbed steadily. As of 2026, median home price is around $775,000, up from $550K in 2019. High-end apartments, like those in the new Hollywood Park development, achieve rents comparable to nearby upscale areas. Local incomes are rising too. Many new residents are young professionals drawn to more affordable rents than West Side LA. The city's commercial corridors, Century, Manchester, La Brea, see increased business openings. However, longtime renters face rent hikes, prompting stronger tenant protections. See below. Policy and regulatory context. Inglewood's leadership is navigating between promoting growth and protecting residents. The city enacted a permanent rent stabilization ordinance in 2019, capping rent increases at 5% annually and adding just cause eviction protections. This came as residents voiced concern about rents rising because of the new NFL stadium and other construction projects in Inglewood. On the development side, the city is updating its general plan, Next Level Inglewood, to rezone key areas, like underused industrial land, for mixed-use housing and commercial development. In 2025, the city even fast-tracked a 13-story project's general plan amendment from industrial to residential/commercial, signaling flexibility in land use to accommodate new projects. Inglewood's leadership strongly supports growth but has shown willingness to strike community benefits agreements, CBAs, e.g., local hiring and affordable units, for major projects like the stadium. Redevelopment strategies. Naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAH, preservation, acquire older apartment buildings, 4 to 20-unit range, in Inglewood's lower-density neighborhoods, especially ones at risk of speculative flips. Perform rehab and seismic retrofits, and potentially use tax credits or local incentives to keep a portion of units affordable. This strategy can upgrade housing quality while maintaining some below-market rents, aligning with city goals to prevent displacement. Transit area small lot assemblage, near K-Line stations, downtown Inglewood, Fairview Heights, etc., consolidate adjacent lots with old single-family or obsolete commercial structures. Build mid-rise apartments or townhomes under new zoning that allows higher density. Projects could incorporate ground-floor retail, cafes, services to activate streets. Commercial corridor mixed use. Along Century Boulevard and La Brea Avenue, redevelop aging commercial strips into modern mixed-use projects. For example, the approved 4200 W Century project merges lodging, condos, restaurant/bar, and a large parking garage to serve events. Similar opportunities exist on parcels near the stadium and likely along Prairie Avenue and Manchester Boulevard. Streetscape improvements, wider sidewalks, lighting, can accompany these private redevelopments. Adaptive reuse and cultural preservation. Inglewood has numerous mid-century buildings and Googie-style architecture, e.g., older theaters, diners. These could be repurposed as arts venues or community hubs as part of revitalization efforts, preserving heritage while introducing new uses. Ideological perspectives and debates. Market-oriented perspective. Developers and pro-business voices laud Inglewood's transformation as evidence of what private investment can achieve. They highlight that stadiums and associated developments were financed largely with private funds and are driving local jobs and revenue. The flurry of new projects suggests Inglewood is shedding blight and becoming an economic engine. Reduced regulation and flexible zoning are key. E.g., the city quickly rezoned industrial land for mixed-use high-rises. Criticisms. Equity advocates argue that without intervention, market forces will price out long-time residents, especially renters, in favor of wealthier newcomers. Unchecked development could turn Inglewood into an exclusive enclave, undermining its historic working class and minority communities. Equity-oriented perspective. Community groups and tenant advocates focus on anti-displacement measures. They celebrated the rent stabilization law, 5% cap, as a win and continue to push for affordable housing in all new developments. Unite Here Local 11, a hospitality union, and others have demanded major projects provide things like transit passes and affordable units for workers. These groups want CBAs to guarantee local hiring, living wages, and community amenities, parks, youth programs, as part of redevelopment. Criticisms. Some business groups and property owners feel stringent requirements could slow investment or reduce the viability of projects. They point to nearby cities like Hawthorne or Lawndale that might attract development if Inglewood overregulates. Balancing investment with equitable growth is a central challenge. Environmentalist perspective. Urban planners and environmental advocates support Inglewood's focus on transit-oriented development. Clustering growth near the K line reduces car dependency and LAX traffic. They call for green building standards, solar, LEED construction, and urban greening in projects to mitigate heat and pollution in a dense city. Air quality and noise are top concerns given LAX flight paths and stadium traffic. Mitigation like electric shuttles, sound barriers, and tree planting is urged. Criticisms. Developers may argue that too many environmental mandates, e.g., expensive building materials or additional infrastructure requirements, could deter projects or inflate costs. Proponents respond that sustainable design yields long-term savings and public health benefits that outweigh upfront costs. Industrialization/growth perspective. Regional growth proponents see Inglewood's changes as boosting greater LA's competitiveness. They emphasize that projects like SoFi Stadium have made Inglewood a world-class sports entertainment hub, drawing tourism and spending. They support further vertical growth and modernization, e.g., high-rises around the stadium and airport to maximize economic return. Criticisms. Many residents fear losing the city's identity and being overshadowed by corporate interests. They question whether a focus on visitors, stadiums, hotels truly benefits locals. The challenge here is ensuring that Inglewood's growth serves both the region's economy and its own community, rather than just outside investors. Key risks and challenges. Gentrification is the overriding concern in Inglewood. The city's population is majority Black and Latino, and there are real fears that rising costs will displace these communities. Even with rent control, property values and taxes are going up, impacting homeowners and local businesses. Political risk is present. Tenant groups are active, and any missteps by developers could trigger stronger regulations. Conversely, if regulations become too onerous, the investment boom could stall. Infrastructure is another issue. Traffic congestion around the stadium is significant, and the success of a transit-oriented approach hinges on delivering promised transit, like the People Mover and enhanced bus links. Ultimately, Inglewood's resurgence is a high-reward, high-scrutiny scenario where developers must be socially conscious and politically astute to succeed. Salinas, Central Coast. Redevelopment thesis. Salinas, the agribusiness center of the Monterey Bay region, offers a workforce housing-focused redevelopment opportunity. Known as the salad bowl of the world, Salinas supports a large agricultural workforce and a growing logistics and healthcare sector, but many residents face housing insecurity due to limited supply and relatively low incomes. The redevelopment thesis is to rehabilitate and modestly densify existing neighborhoods, e.g., adding ADUs on single-family lots, renovating older homes, and to revitalize downtown/Chinatown with mixed-use affordable housing. Salinas stands out for its active public sector role in housing. The city is investing in affordable housing and has implemented rent stabilization and a local housing trust fund to steer redevelopment toward equitable outcomes. In essence, Salinas is a model for public-private collaboration to renew older housing while safeguarding affordability for essential workers. Evidence of opportunity. Stable housing demand. Salinas is a city of 163,000 with a steady population. Its economy is anchored by year-round agriculture, food processing, and regional services, schools, Natividad Medical Center, etc., ensuring constant demand for workforce housing. Multi-generational households are common. There's a need for larger, quality housing that can accommodate extended families or multiple farmworker roommates. Aging housing stock. Much of Salinas housing was built mid-20th century. Older homes with deferred maintenance, especially in East Salinas and older suburban areas, present opportunities for rehab and addition of second units. Typical single-family prices, mid-2020s median $600K, remain moderate relative to coastal neighbors like Monterey, where medians exceed $900,000, making Salinas a comparatively affordable buy-in for redevelopment. City-led projects. The city of Salinas actively supports redevelopment in blighted downtown blocks. In April 2026, the City Council approved $1.1 million in federal funds to acquire a Chinatown property, the Victory Mission Shelter, with an eye toward future mixed-use affordable housing. A local news report, 2026, notes this is the first step to revitalize the area, and city officials plan to bring in an affordable housing developer once the site is acquired. Similarly, in 2024, the city secured state grants to plan 85-plus affordable units and retail space, while preserving a historic building in Chinatown. These efforts illustrate concrete support for neighborhood redevelopment that benefits low-income residents. Policy tools in place. Salinas has put multiple housing policy tools on the ground. A rent stabilization ordinance adopted in 2024 limits annual rent increases in most multifamily properties to 2.75% or 75% of CPI, whichever is less, providing stability for tenants. The city also operates a local housing trust fund, with state matching funds up to $5 million, to finance new affordable and transitional housing units. Moreover, Salinas facilitates ADUs and has an active ADU incentive program following California's ADU laws. The region even relaxed some development rights to encourage ADUs, as in 2022's Monterey Bay Region ADU MOUs. These policies reflect a robust local commitment to channel redevelopment toward community-serving outcomes. Policy and regulatory context. Salinas' approach to redevelopment is shaped by balancing agricultural land preservation with urban infill. The city's general plan and 2035 Salinas plan focus growth inward to protect surrounding farmland, aligning with state requirements like the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, RHNA. As mentioned, Salinas has rent control for larger complexes and just cause eviction protections, unusual for a city of its size, but motivated by rapid rent increases in the mid-2010s. The city's Housing and Community Development Division actively manages federal funds, CDBG, home, etc., to address slum/blight and assist low-income families. Inclusionary zoning is in effect. A percentage of units in new projects must be affordable, and the city employs density bonuses to incentivize those units. Salinas has also embraced state pro-housing efforts, It was recognized with a pro-housing designation by HCD in 2023, making it eligible for extra grant points. Redevelopment strategies. ADU-focused redevelopment. Leverage Salinas' many single-family neighborhoods on larger lots by rehabbing the main house and adding ADUs or junior
ADUs.
For example, a 1950s three-bedroom with a big backyard in East Salinas could be renovated and accompanied by a new two-bedroom ADU, providing housing for an extended family or an extra rental unit. The city supports ADUs through a free pre-approved plans program and technical assistance. Moderate Rehab Plus Edition. For older small multifamily buildings, e.g. fourplexes, near downtown or near job centers, perform interior upgrades and add community amenities, laundry, security lighting, to improve quality. If zoning permits, consider adding a couple of units, e.g., converting unused storage or garage space into studios. Downtown Mixed-Use Revitalization. Target Salinas Chinatown and downtown, historically blighted but culturally rich areas. Acquire and rehabilitate historic commercial buildings, some currently vacant or underused, into ground-floor community services, like health clinics or markets, with affordable apartments above. The city and partners are already doing this with one Chinatown block, 88 units with a restored historic cafe facade. There is appetite for more developers who can navigate public financing and community engagement to replicate similar projects. Greenfield conversions within city limits. In Salinas North Edge and South Salinas, some older commercial/industrial parcels can be converted to housing or mixed use. Example, a disused packing shed or trucking yard might be rezoned for residential, aligning with city goals to replace blight and avoid expanding into farmland. Ideological perspectives and debates. Market-oriented perspective. Property owners and local businesses in Salinas often argue that reducing regulatory barriers will spur needed housing creation. They point to burdens like rent control and inclusionary requirements as potentially deterring private investment. Some believe more market-rate housing should be welcomed, e.g., letting builders construct without strict affordability mandates would still improve supply and ease overall pressure. Criticisms. Equity proponents respond that market-rate projects often bypass farm workers and low-income families, the majority of local renters. They argue Salinas must intentionally produce subsidized units, or the housing shortage for the working poor will persist, given modest local wages. Equity-oriented perspective. Housing justice and farm worker advocates dominate much of Salinas' housing conversation. They stress that redevelopment must serve those who feed the region, farm workers and service workers, many of whom endure overcrowded or substandard conditions. These advocates celebrate Salinas' new rent stabilization, trust fund, and public housing investments as crucial tools. They support city purchase of land, like the Chinatown example, to ensure future projects include affordable units. Criticisms. Developers sometimes push back that heavy emphasis on low-income housing can make projects financially challenging without state subsidies, potentially slowing the pace of redevelopment. Equity advocates maintain that creative financing, tax credits, trusts, etc., and public-private partnerships can bridge those gaps, as already shown in Salinas. Environmentalist perspective. Smart growth and environmental groups in the Central Coast highlight Salinas as an example of infill versus sprawl. They strongly favor the city's stance of not building on prime farmland, focusing development within existing urban boundaries. This approach protects vital agricultural land and reduces long-range commuting and its emissions. They also emphasize climate resilience in redeveloped homes, improved insulation for extreme heat, better air filtration for wildfire smoke, and water conservation given California's drought concerns. Criticisms. Some growth-focused voices might argue that Salinas should annex more land to allow housing expansion if needed, as a safety valve to relieve crowding. Environmentalists and planners counter that there is ample capacity for tens of thousands of units within Salinas' current footprint if zoning is optimized and housing is built more densely in appropriate areas. Industrialization/growth perspective. Economic development advocates in Salinas support modernizing the city's aging industrial base. They see opportunities to redevelop old packing plants or brownfields on the city fringes into advanced agriculture technology hubs or logistics centers, which can create jobs. They argue that adequate housing, including transitional and seasonal housing, is needed to support agribusiness competitiveness. Criticisms. Community members often fear such development might overshadow Salinas' character or exacerbate environmental issues, water usage, pesticide exposure. Thus, while growth is welcome, it's moderated by strong local planning, e.g., requiring buffer zones between industrial uses and residential areas. Key risks and challenges. Salinas' proactive approach doesn't eliminate financial and logistical challenges. Many needed projects, e.g., rehabilitating a Chinatown block, rely on layered financing, city funds, state grants, HSC, home, tax credits, etc., which can be complex to assemble and subject to political winds. Farm worker housing in particular remains difficult. Even with plans and studies, the sheer gap between agricultural wages and development costs necessitates ongoing subsidies. Additionally, public safety in some neighborhoods, Chinatown, East Salinas, must be addressed concurrently with physical redevelopment. The city has to invest in social programs and policing to truly uplift those areas. Still, Salinas demonstrates that a committed city government with a focus on housing equity can guide redevelopment to meet community needs, making it a compelling landscape for mission-aligned developers. Oakland, Bay Area. Redevelopment thesis. Oakland is a high-impact, transit-rich urban market where redevelopment can deliver both significant returns and social benefits, but requires navigating complex politics. As the Bay Area's third-largest city, Oakland has extreme housing demand due to regional job growth, yet vast neighborhoods of older housing, vacant land, and aging commercial/industrial sites. The redevelopment thesis is to harness Oakland's assets, BART stations, historic building stock, port, and industrial land, for infill housing and mixed-use projects, while respecting the city's diverse communities. The potential upside is large. Oakland's strategic location, just across from San Francisco, and improved safety has driven increasing investment and rising rents in many neighborhoods. But to succeed, redevelopment must align with robust tenant protections and community expectations in a city with a long history of activism. Evidence of opportunity. Regional demand and pricing. Oakland offers relatively lower costs than San Francisco or Silicon Valley while providing access to the same job market. As of late 2025, there were nearly 11,000 low-income housing units in Oakland, with construction accelerating in recent years, indicating both the scale of need and the level of building activity. Market rate rents and home prices have climbed. Median home list price was $800K in 2025 and median two-bedroom rent around $2,600, reflecting high demand. Transit-oriented development. Oakland's multiple BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, stations, and AC transit bus hubs make it ideal for dense infill housing. Projects like MacArthur Station, a multi-phase development around MacArthur BART, have added hundreds of units, including affordable housing on former parking lots. In West Oakland, a 240-unit project near BART recently broke ground after years of delay. The city's downtown-specific plan encourages upzoning near transit, and a dozen major sites downtown have proposals, residential towers, office conversions. Public and affordable housing pipeline. The Oakland Housing Authority, OHA, and partners have been very active. The OHA's Office of Real Estate Development has delivered over 2,500 new affordable homes in recent years, with 1,700 more in the pipeline, a testament to public-private partnership capacity. Oakland also awarded $80.5 million to 5 affordable developments in 2022, e.g., a 222-unit supportive housing tower downtown. These investments indicate a supportive funding environment and availability of local expertise for community-focused projects. Commercial and industrial reuse. Oakland has large underutilized industrial zones, particularly at the edges of West Oakland and along the waterfront, aside from the busy port. The massive Brooklyn Basin project is converting a former industrial waterfront into a 3,100-unit mixed-income neighborhood, ongoing. Smaller warehouses in areas like Jingletown and near downtown are being turned into breweries, art studios, or loft housing. This shows the profit potential in adaptive reuse, given Oakland's strong cultural scene and demand for unique spaces. Policy and regulatory context. Oakland has some of the strongest tenant protections and development requirements in California. The city's rent adjustment program, rent control, limits rent increases on older units to CPI, 3% in recent years, and extends just cause evictions citywide. Oakland was an early adopter of a vacant property tax to push landowners to develop or sell empty lots/buildings. On the other hand, the city is actively accommodating growth through planning. The Downtown Oakland Specific Plan, adopted 2023, upzones downtown for tens of thousands of new housing units, with community benefits requirements. Oakland's zoning also allows higher density near transit via state density bonuses. By right approval for qualifying infill, SB 35, is available if projects include affordable units, and Oakland has been certified by the state for pro-housing policies, giving it a leg up in grant competitions for infrastructure funding. Meanwhile, any redevelopment must account for Oakland's strict labor and environmental standards, e.g., local hire, project labor agreements, often expected, green building codes. Redevelopment strategies. Small-scale infill in neighborhoods. In flatland neighborhoods with many early 20th century houses, West, East Oakland, Fruitvale, pursue small-lot infill and ADU additions. For example, buy a vacant lot or fire-damaged property and build a triplex or fourplex by taking advantage of SB 9 and local upzoning near transit. These smaller projects face less opposition and can utilize state streamlined approvals if they include affordable units. Seismic and energy retrofits. A huge portion of Oakland's housing stock is older, pre-1940. There is both an economic and safety opportunity in retrofitting these structures, e.g. reinforcing soft-story apartments, often 1950s, 60s fourplexes with tuck-under parking, to meet seismic codes and remodeling interiors for contemporary standards. Subsidy programs, like California's earthquake soft-story retrofit grants, help offset costs. These upgrades extend building life and justify rent increases within allowed limits or allow re-tenanting at higher rents while ensuring compliance with tenant protection laws. Adaptive reuse of commercial/industrial buildings. Convert older warehouses or office buildings into housing or live-work units, especially near downtown or transit. Oakland's surge in remote work has left some office space underused. Developers are exploring conversions to residential, taking advantage of existing height and structure. Example, the Tribune Tower downtown was partially converted to condos. For industrial, consider creative uses, e.g. West Oakland warehouses becoming mixed-use, maker spaces with artist lofts and ground-floor workshops. Mixed income and mixed-use developments. Oakland's regulatory environment favors projects that mix market rate and affordable units to utilize density bonuses and expedited approvals. A redevelopment strategy can be to partner with a nonprofit or OHA to include, say, 20% below-market units, thereby unlocking higher density or coveted public land sites. Many publicly owned or church-owned lots in Oakland's neighborhoods are being offered for such joint development. Ideological perspectives and debates. Market-oriented perspective. Some business coalitions and developers in Oakland argue that overregulation is constraining housing supply. They believe the city's potential, ample land, demand, isn't realized due to onerous affordable housing requirements and lengthy approval processes. They support efforts to streamline approvals, like SB 35, and reduce fees to encourage more private building. They also tout the positive impact of new investment reducing blight and generating taxes. Criticisms. Community groups often respond that in the absence of regulation, Oakland experienced severe displacement during the 2010s tech boom. They view some regulations, like inclusionary zoning or rent control, as essential to preserve Oakland's social fabric and prevent all new housing from being luxury only. Equity-oriented perspective. Tenant advocates and community organizations in Oakland are very influential. They emphasize that redevelopment should fight historic inequities, e.g., West Oakland's Black community was decimated by past urban renewal. they demand no repeat. They support policies like community land trusts, cooperative housing, and strict enforcement of rent control to keep people housed while improvements happen. When new large projects arise, they push for community benefits, parks, local jobs, affordable units, through negotiations or mandates. Criticisms. Some city officials worry that extremely stringent demands can slow down or scare off investment altogether, ironically exacerbating shortages. Equity groups maintain that any redevelopment must be accountable to the community first. They often cite examples of developments proceeding fine in Oakland with these conditions when done collaboratively, e.g., the Brooklyn Basin Project includes 465 affordable units due to negotiated terms. Environmentalist perspective. Environmental justice and transit advocates stress Oakland's role in sustainable urban living. They favor dense infill near transit to reduce suburban sprawl in the region and champion projects that clean up contaminated sites, like old industrial land in West Oakland that has legacy pollution. Projects combining housing with transit, biking infrastructure, and green space get support. Oakland's flatlands suffer from air pollution, freeways, port. An environmental perspective is that redevelopment must include green buffers and transit to mitigate these impacts. Criticisms. Occasionally, environmental impact reviews can delay projects. Some pro-housing activists accuse environmental regulations of being misused to block housing. Environmentalists respond that truly sustainable development is a win-win, e.g., making buildings energy efficient and focusing growth in urban cores is good for both housing and climate. Industrialization/growth perspective. Port and industry stakeholders in Oakland emphasize that alongside housing, Oakland's economic redevelopment is key. They highlight opportunities like modernizing the Port of Oakland, one of the busiest ports on the West Coast, and expanding light manufacturing in East Oakland's commercial zones. They argue Oakland can be a jobs engine if it doesn't convert all industrial land to housing. A balance is needed. Criticisms. Community members sometimes oppose new industrial projects due to pollution and truck traffic concerns, especially in West Oakland, already burdened by port pollution. The debate centers on mixed-use planning, how to allow industrial job growth while also building housing, with careful land use buffers. Oakland's planning strategy now emphasizes production, distribution, and repair, PDR, zones separate from residential areas to address these tensions. Key risks and challenges. Redevelopment in Oakland is complex but rewarding. Key risks include lengthy approval times, if not using state streamlining, and fierce community scrutiny, while organized opposition can delay or derail projects that don't address local concerns. The city's requirement for union labor or prevailing wages on many projects can increase costs, which developers must factor in. Oakland also has a relatively high crime perception, though crime rates have improved. Overcoming stigma in certain neighborhoods can be challenging for marketing. On the upside, the city and region offer various funding sources, tech fund contributions, state HSC grants, etc., to support affordable components of projects, and Oakland's central location ensures long-term demand. Developers who engage with the community and build inclusive strategies can tap into one of California's most opportunity-rich urban markets for redevelopment. Redding, North Coast and Cascades. Redevelopment thesis. Redding is the economic heart of far northern California, a mid-sized city, Pop. 93,000, that serves a vast rural region. Redding's redevelopment opportunity lies in its affordable market with lifestyle appeal. It's a hub for retirees, remote workers, and outdoor enthusiasts, gateway to Mount Shasta and Shasta Lake, offering a high quality of life at lower cost than California's metros. The city's housing is predominantly post-World War II suburban style, with pockets of older buildings downtown. The redevelopment thesis is to upgrade aging housing stock, repurpose commercial properties, like vacant big-box stores, and activate downtown with mixed-use projects, all while incorporating climate resilience, e.g., wildfire hardening. Redding's fundamentals are strong. Low vacancy, modest rent growth, and local leadership eager to revitalize the city center. Evidence of opportunity. Low vacancy and steady rent growth. As of 2025, Redding's rental markets are very tight. Multifamily vacancy is around 3%, and retail vacancy 4.2%, both extremely low. Rents have been growing modestly, 2-3% annually for apartments, actually outpacing the national average in some segments like certain retail rents. This reflects pent-up demand for quality space, making a good case for new or renovated units. Major projects underway. Reading has seen a burst of revitalization projects. The downtown Reading Public Market, opened late 2025, transformed the ground floor of a new mixed-use building into a 16,000 square feet public market hall with 12 local eateries, creating 150 jobs. It is part of a larger effort to create a walkable entertainment zone downtown. River Bend Commons, under development, is converting a former Costco big box site on Dana Doctor into an open-air shopping center with restaurants, including the first Raising Cane's in the region. This repurposing of a vacant retail property is a blueprint for handling retail vacancies via mixed-use concepts. Residential infill. The city has approved multiple infill and subdivision projects recently, often using mitigated negative declarations or infill seeker exemptions. Examples: Canby Apartments, small infill apartment project approved May 2025, and Brentwood Village subdivision, A14, lot infill subdivision approved September 2025. These projects show the city's willingness to approve new housing on underutilized parcels with streamlined environmental review. Lifestyle migration. Reading has attracted remote workers and retirees seeking affordable living with access to outdoor recreation. The pandemic accelerated this trend. With more professionals relocating, there is an opportunity to upgrade housing and downtown amenities to cater to this demographic, who bring relatively higher incomes into the area. Policy and regulatory context. Reading's city government actively supports downtown redevelopment, evident in the implementation of a downtown-specific plan and infrastructure upgrades in the city core, such as restoring a two-way street grid, similar to Fresno's efforts. The city often uses categorical seeker exemptions for infill, as allowed under SECA Guidelines Section 15332, to speed approval of qualifying projects. There is no local rent control. The area's market hasn't seen extreme spikes historically, aside from statewide AB 1482 protections. Reading's planning processes are generally straightforward, with a relatively low degree of public opposition compared to larger cities, although neighborhood groups still voice concerns about traffic or fire safety. The city also heavily emphasizes wildfire preparedness and hardening in its building codes and development conditions, given its location in a fire-prone region. Redevelopment strategies. Post-war home upgrades. Focus on 1950s, 1970s subdivisions, e.g., neighborhoods like Garden Tract, Hilltop area, where homes may be structurally sound but dated. Renovate interiors and exteriors, new roofs, dual-pane windows, modern HVAC, and incorporate fire-resilient materials, Class A roofs, ember-resistant vents, a marketable safety feature in wildfire country. These refurbished homes appeal to retirees wanting turnkey properties or remote workers moving in from out of town. Downtown mixed use and infill. Continue the momentum of downtown Reading by developing vacant or underused lots in the core. For example, surface parking lots or low-rise commercial buildings on Market Street or Pine St. could become 4 to 6-story mixed-use buildings, blending ground-floor retail, restaurants, co-working, etc., with apartments above. The success of the public market suggests strong local appetite for more downtown amenities. The city's entertainment district and new streetscapes enhance the desirability of downtown living. Reuse of commercial sites. Identify big box, vacancies, or distressed shopping centers for repurposing. The River Bend Commons, Old Costco, project demonstrates local capacity to handle such redevelopments. Another possibility. The out-of-date Mount Shasta Mall area could be partially redeveloped with residential or live-work units integrated into a modern retail/residential mix. Master plan communities on fire rebuild sites. In areas impacted by past wildfires, e.g., in the wildland urban interface around Reading, consider redeveloping clusters of lots with fire-destroyed homes into resilient small communities. For example, after the 2018 Carretera fire, some subdivisions on Reading's outskirts were largely burned. There is opportunity to rebuild these areas with updated fire codes, possibly at slightly higher density, townhomes, or cluster developments to improve fire defense and provide more housing. Ideological perspectives and debates. Market-oriented perspective. Local real estate professionals and pro-business factions in Reading see the city as a prime example of how market demand naturally drives growth. They note that Reading's downtown revival, like the public market, was accomplished by local developers responding to public investments, not because of heavy mandates. They favor light regulation to let entrepreneurs fill gaps, e.g., reusing vacant stores, building spec homes, believing this will result in a thriving city without needing the kind of interventions bigger cities use. Criticisms. Some worry that a laissez-faire approach might neglect the needs of lower-income residents, e.g., new downtown apartments might skew luxury or environmental concerns. Market proponents argue that Reading doesn't have the extreme gentrification pressures of big cities, so broad benefits will trickle down as the city grows. Equity-oriented perspective. Social service providers and some civic leaders in Reading focus on issues like homelessness and inclusive growth. They emphasize that redevelopment should include solutions for unsheltered populations, e.g., transitional housing as part of downtown projects, and ensure new jobs pay fair wages. The city has a Chinatown Navigation Center and other efforts for the homeless, but funding is always tight. Equity-minded voices support using new tax revenue from redevelopment to fund affordable housing or shelters. Criticisms. Opponents might say Reading should prioritize economic growth first, then address social issues with a stronger tax base. They sometimes resist dedicating prime downtown sites to low-income housing, fearing it could deter private investors. Environmentalist perspective. Local environmental and outdoor enthusiasts want Reading's growth to remain sustainable and sensitive to its natural setting. They support concentrating development downtown to preserve open space and minimize car travel to shops. There's a push for bike lanes and transit as part of redevelopment. Reading recently expanded its riverfront trails, and activists want new projects to connect to these networks. Additionally, fire resilience is an environmental justice issue here. Advocates insist that any expansion in the wildland-urban interface incorporate robust defensible space and not put more people in harm's way. Criticisms. Some developers feel the city's fire-related building requirements, like sprinkler mandates and ember-resistant materials, add cost. But given recent fire history, these concerns are hard to refute. Industrialization/growth perspective. Economic development and pro-growth advocates in Reading highlight that the city is pivoting from a mill town to a diversified economy, healthcare, tech, tourism. They support further development of business parks, light manufacturing, and logistics facilities to create local jobs. For instance, expanding Reading Municipal Airport's industrial park or converting land along I-5 into distribution centers. They see room for growth without big city problems. Criticisms. Others note that Reading's workforce is limited, and too much industrial expansion might outpace labor supply or change the city's small-town feel. They also caution against heavy industries that could impact the pristine environment that makes Reading attractive. Key risks and challenges. Reading's main challenge is one of scale and capital. It's a relatively small market, so large projects, high-rises, big luxury developments may struggle to find enough buyers or tenants. Redevelopments must be right-sized to local demand. Economic swings, e.g., if remote work trends reverse or a recession hits, reducing retiree relocations could soften demand. Additionally, climate change poses risks. Reading is prone to extremely hot summers and wildfire threats. Redevelopment must incorporate resilience, which could mean higher upfront costs. On the other hand, Reading's proactive approach to revitalization, with at least 7 significant projects reshaping the city's core by 2025 per local media, and consistent occupancy levels suggest a cushion for investors. With moderate growth and supportive local government, Reading offers a stable environment for value-add investments, especially for those targeting lifestyle-driven demand. Conclusion. These region-specific analyses illustrate that California's redevelopment opportunities are highly varied, from Fresno's large-scale infill potential to Tahoe's niche workforce housing needs, to Inglewood's urban renaissance, and beyond. Each city requires a tailored approach that aligns with local conditions. Central Valley scale and affordability, Sierra constraints and incentives, desert growth management, LA area anti-displacement policies, Central Coast equity planning, Bay Area urban complexities, and North State sustainability. In summary, Fresno stands out as the top region for scalable infill, low costs, strong city support, while Inglewood and Oakland offer high returns in exchange for savvy navigation of social contracts. Salinas and Tahoe underscore how public policy, like rent stabilization, pro-housing status, or TRPA regulations, shape redevelopment. Victorville and Redding demonstrate the importance of context, one being a frontier of SoCal expansion, the other a steady regional center turning to infill for revitalization. Ultimately, successful redevelopment in California will rely on reading each market's conditions, leveraging local incentives, engaging communities, and balancing profit with public interest. By doing so, developers and policymakers can turn degraded homes and neighborhoods into revitalized, thriving communities.